Okay. Hey, children, how's it going today? It's been a busy day for Uncle Brian. Went out, went to went to the gym, got a good workout in, feeling great. Went to attempt to kayak up in the Sandhills, their little hidden gem of a lake, not very big, probably a couple acre lake up there, just off Highway 2 there in the Sandhills. And needless to say, I instead of kayaking today, I made it into I guess it was more of a scenic drive through the countryside. And then I got one of my fuel filters in for my outboard on the boat that I got installed. I had an issue there on the lake about a week ago where the got a 115 Mercury hanging off the transom of my boat. I got a 17-foot tracker deep V fishing boat, and the engine failed to quit on me out there on the middle of the lake here last week, and so I've kind of chalked it down to plugged up fuel filters. So I ordered three fuel filters and an oil filter, and I got one of those fuel filters today. So I replaced the low pressure fuel filter today, just a little bit ago. And I thought, well, maybe I've got a little time here. I can do another video. So today I'm going to talk about transactional versus validational sex. So guess what? I'm going to be your sex coach this evening. Make a quick, brief video on the difference between transactional and validational sex. And for most of you guys, and you don't know this yet, but you will this evening, that most of you guys, especially if you're married, you're getting transactional sex. And what does it mean by when your sex is transactional? Well, look at it this way. It's no different when you go to the store and you exchange your money for groceries. That's transactional. It's no different. But when we're talking about transactional sex, we're talking about a system where your wife or long-term girlfriend will withhold sex from you unless you do A, B, or C. And once you've completed A, B, or C, and then hell, for some of you, there might be D, E, F, and G, and so on, then you might get sex. I know guys that um, get sex once a year on their birthday if they're lucky. A sexless marriage. But for this video, I'm going to be referencing Rollo Tomasi's from the Rational Male. He's got an article here titled Transactional versus Validational Sex. And he first starts off by saying, you cannot negotiate genuine desire. Okay. Um, when a woman has strong, genuine desire for you, that's where you're going to get your validational sex. That's a sex that's no rules attached to it. It's unfettered. It's the monkey double backflip sex you would get when you first meet somebody. And that's, again, it goes back to if a woman, when she first meets you, that first interaction, like you meet her at I don't know, you meet her at the library and you guys exchange phone numbers after a brief conversation, agree to meet, a day or two later at your favorite coffee place or restaurant or bar, and you're doing like a coffee date or a drink date. That's where she's going to determine if you're alpha enough to want to fuck your brains out right there after the date. She'd probably be yearning to have sex with you. That's foundational sex. That's the first initial contact where if you play your cards right and you don't come across as dopey, stupid, needy, um, and she's got genuine burning desire for you, that's where the validational sex come in. And if you can maintain that genuine burning desire after the relationship is established, you'll always get that validational sex. It's when guys get too comfortable in their relationships and or their marriages where they quit doing the work. They eventually become the guy that she is no longer physically attracted to. So then it goes back to, well, it goes to transactional sex where if you mow the yard, for example, if she says, "Oh, why don't you got mow the yard?" Or if you go trying to rub up on her, or you say, "Let's go to the bedroom for a little sexy time," and she says, "Well, not right now. Maybe after you mow the yard." and then you hurry up and go out there, mow the yard, and she uh, agrees to have sex with you, and then she follows you to the bedroom, and she gets undressed, and then she just flops on the bed. It's starfish sex, Carl's Jr. star sex. Okay, it's like, hurry up, get it done. I got better things to do. Is what she's thinking. But anyways, in this article from Rollo, I'm just gonna skim and catch through some things. He goes on to say, as part of his undergraduate study, and one consistent theme he got from almost all of the men was how their marriages or LTRs have been so much more sexually satisfying when they were dating their wives or before they committed to some kind of exclusivity. That's similar to what I mentioned earlier. The the initial first date, like your coffee date or drink date, is when she determines if you're worth jumping your bones right now. Because the golden rule is usually within, if you're not getting sex from her after the third date, you move on. You drop all contact, you move on, because then she's going to either put you in a friend zone or she's going to determine you're a beta. And then when she determines you're beta, that's where you're going to start getting a transactional sex. She's going to make rules for bedroom play, whereas she's not going to make those rules for an alpha guy. And a lot of guys get they misunderstand that. um, for the crux for guys, they mistakenly believe that the hot monkey sex they were having with their women prior to doing the right thing and getting married or committed was something that would be characteristic of their quality woman into a long-term relationship with them. So guys are thinking, man, I'm getting this great hot sex from a girl. I'm gonna go ahead and try to lock her down. And then once I lock her down, I'm done. I don't have to do anything more. I'll just go work my 9 to 5. I'll come home, kick on ESPN, watch Sports Center, watch sports on the weekend or during the week or what have you. They'll do everything but keep their wife or girlfriend entertained. Guys, you have to continuously do the work. And of course, Rollo goes on to say, he talks about the different menstrual cycles in women. That also determines the validational versus the transactional sex. It depends on in their cycle what they're looking for. Um, he talks about um, alpha fucks, beta bucks, which that's absolutely true. If a woman's going to determine your alpha, she's gonna there's no rules. And then here he goes on. We're going to talk about validational sex. When women look for that alpha seed in their peak ovulatory proliferative phase, the sex they seek is the desired sex with a man who meets evolutionary criteria. He's the hot guy or the man who leaves a woman with a perception of danger or excitement. And all those guys are your high value men, all the way down to the T-Rash guys who live a life of danger, who live life to survive. Um, a lot of men who don't meet that criteria have a tendency to over exaggerate this type of man as alpha Chad and make a ridiculous parody of him as an ego protection mechanism for themselves. The sex that women give enthusiastic consent for is validational for them. Okay. Again, if she deems your alpha, the consent is literally enthusiastic, meaning all bets are off. There are no rules on the table. She will jump your bones right then and there. Okay. Remember, the validational sex is usually sex that is, when a woman has genuine burning desire for you, she is ready to go right then and there. Okay. And then transactional sex. Let me run a scenario by you guys, and I'm sure some of you could relate when it comes to transactional sex. the last probably, I don't know, 7, 10 years of my marriage, my sex with my wife was transactional. The way it was at during that time for me was I would, ask her to go have sex, or I would say, hey, let's go to the bedroom and have a little fun time, whatever. And it seemed like every time I bring it up, I caught her at a bad moment. Like she was in the middle of something, or she was one of her favorite things was she watched a lot of TV. So if I hit her up in the middle of a show she's watching, for example, like Grey's Anatomy, and say, hey, let's go to the bedroom and have a little fun. Oh, not right now. I want to watch the rest of this episode of Grey's Anatomy, and then we can probably have some fun later. That's transactional. Again, she's negotiating when we're having sex with me. I bring it up, say, hey, let's go to the bedroom. Well, no, not right now. I want to finish watching this episode of Grey's Anatomy, for example. Okay, fine. And again, if she agreed to it, I'd sit there and like a beta male I would eagerly wait for that episode to be over, and then boom, it was go time. And then same thing, she would, get to the bedroom, undress, and she just flop herself on the bed, a starfish, Carl's Jr. sex we were having. Okay. That was the sex I had. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of you guys don't know it, but you're having transactional sex with your wives or long term girlfriends right now. Anytime you have to barter or negotiate sex, anytime she's withholding sex until you do A or do B, usually it's like do something around the house, like mow the yard or shovel the snow or pick up after the dog or whatever. And then you'll get laid. And Rollo goes on to say, as the most overt form of transactional sex is prostitution, and that's true. For prostitution, when it's transactional, you're essentially exchanging money for sex. That's that's as simple as dumbed down as we can get it. And really, if you're having transactional sex with your wife, I mean, why not go pay for it? You might get a little better deal if you pay a prostitute. I mean, she might give you a lot better sex than your wife does. Or your long-term girl. And Rillo goes on to say, for most men, i.e., the 80% beta men, remember, there's girls are always seeking the top 15 to 20% of men. And those are guys that they are deeming as alpha, the Chads. Okay. These are the guys that put into work, they work hard, they make good money, they have interesting hobbies, they have their own home, they have their own vehicles, they might have a motorcycle in there or a boat. I mean, these are the guys that the women are looking for. Okay. Transactional sex is where the rubber meets the road for the bottom 80% of men, and he classifies those as beta men. And he goes on to say, and I mentioned already, in fact, I'd argue that for most beta men, transactional sex is the only definition of sex they ever really know. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I was in that boat as a beta male. I was that was yeah. And marriage today is almost entirely predicated on the transactional sex side of hypergamy. Yep. And he goes on to say he's fairly comfortable in speculating that for most married women, sex is a reward she uses in the operant conditioning of her husband. Again, betatization through 1,000 concessions. So, in instances where she can actually get that alpha Chad to settle, then she starts conditioning him to be more beta. Okay, and then she'll start withholding sex from that man. But first, she'll try to get him to marry her, which a lot of guys jump in that cesspool of marriage. Okay, and usually during that time, the husband does hand over the frame of the relationship to the wife. I mean, that's what happened to me years ago. I lost frame, and then when she finally the power dynamic switched over to her over time, that's exactly what happened to me. And then he goes on to say, talks about unnegotiated desire, which I don't know if I'm going to touch much on that, but I'm going to kind of glance through this. And if there's anything we want to talk about, there will, we can talk about. And good, and in unnegotiated desire, it's pretty much now the man has lost frame in the relationship or marriage. He's getting starfish sex, where he's like, well, if you go mow the grass, I'll give you sex, or if you shovel the snow, or if you wash the kids. Um, oh, here's a scenario I want to share with everybody real fast. Okay, this is how we bring the transactional and validational sex together, but it's in a different setting. So, like, if you're a married guy or you've been in a long LTR with your girl, okay, and all you're getting is transactional sex, there's she's also, if she's giving you transactional sex and she's really not into you, or um she's she doesn't love you, but well, how's that work? She loves you, but she's not in love with you, okay? And then she's spending more nights out with the girls, meaning she's out there, okay, she's had transactional sex with you, and then she gets dolled up, and 2 3 hours later she's out with the girls doing girls night out downtown somewhere, and she meets this alpha Chad, and the rules that she places on you in the bedroom, she's breaking for him. Okay. So he's taking her back to his place. She's doing monkey double backflips all over him. Okay. No restrictions, no restraints, no nothing. Unfettered. Um, Everything that she's desired, she's getting. And then he takes her back to her place. Well, he drops her off a block from her house, and then she walks home. Okay. That scenario, I'm sure you guys have, some of you have probably experienced. I never have, but I'm sure some of you have experienced that. And of course, he goes on to mention the turnaround a lot of married and single red pill guys experience when they unplug is the attention they receive from women when they switch from transactional disposition to a validational disposition with regard to sex. When a man unplugs and cuts himself away from his blue pill conditioning, one change he makes is a shift from viewing sex as transactional to validational. In the beginning, when men are first learning game and becoming more red pill aware about the nature of women, they really don't recognize this shift in attitude towards sex. When I say men need to make themselves a prize with regards to sex and their attention, what happens is they go from the how can I pay for sex to qualify for it with a woman. Again, you're going from transactional to validational. If you can get back to that. And I pay for sex to qualify for it with a woman, to women will recognize that I represent an opportunity for validational sex. So for another thing too is uh, in your blue pill conditioning, beta men would feel entitled to her sexuality for having accommodated her, meaning, and I've heard this many times, where a guy will tell his girlfriend or wife, well, we've been together for 10 years, and I should just be entitled to your body, meaning I married you, I've got a legal binding agreement, I've got an agreement, or you and I have an agreement with the state. Guy pretty much treats his wife, or especially if you're married, you have that agreement with the state. Pretty much a lot of guys take that as, well, now that we're married, she's like property, like the vehicle in the garage, and guys don't understand that's not true. Your wife is a human being with feelings. She can think for herself, live for herself. um, she doesn't need you for to make her decisions. Says she's her own person. You cannot treat your wife as a piece of property just because you and her have a legal binding agreement called marriage. Okay. And so, yeah, I think I covered the transactional and the validational sex quite well. Like I said, this topic is kind of new to me as well. I just happened to kind of briefly study it, but it's kind of an eye opener. I don't think a lot of guys understand that the relationships they're in are transactional, and of course, your wife or your long term girlfriend holds that power over you. I mean, sex is what guys are after, and what happens over time, especially what happened to me over time before I got divorced was I got red pill. I became red pill aware about 2, 3 years before I got divorced. That's probably part of the reason why I did get divorced. I mean, I did, but once I got red pill aware, um, I started doing the work. I was going back to the gym. I was refocusing myself as a man, what I wanted to become. In 5, 10 years, what kind of man I wanted to be, how I wanted to carry myself, how I wanted to interact with other people, especially women. And once I started working on myself, I started seeing results of that from how women were reacting to me, when I was out and about. And you'll be surprised how things change for you as a man when you start looking at yourself as a prize. Guys, we're disposable. I mean, you look at our young men that join the military, right now they voluntarily sign up. But if the shit were to hit the fan, guess who's going to war? Our young men. And a lot of those young men, unfortunately, there's casualties in war. A lot of those young guys are gonna get killed. So men, we are disposable. We're the disposable sex, and we need to be treated better, treated as a prize. And so once you realize your worth and you build your worth, women will see that and start treating you accordingly. Hey, wait a minute, this guy he's the man. He's the Chad. He's the guy I want to be with. I want to get with, not the lonely dopey beta. So think about that, guys. Next time if you're married, think about how you interact with your wife in the bedroom. Is it transactional? More than likely. There might be a few of you that are getting validational sex from your wife, but not likely. So hope this video is informative enough. I'm going to pin this article in the description there when I get the video uploaded. But think about it, guys. Think about it. So I guess that's all I got for this evening. Toodles.